Commodore fans, are you ready? It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast on the 440 Sports Network. Keep it locked right here for the best Vanderbilt coverage. Whether it's Clark Lee on the gridiron, Mark Byington and Shea Ralph on the hardwood, or Tim Corbin on the diamond, the Vandy247 crew has you covered. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Also, like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free and easy to do. Follow the crew on Twitter, Apple Podcast, and Spotify for podcast episodes. Lastly, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. And now, pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast.
Welcome back into Vandy247 Live. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, on a beautiful Thursday morning here in Nashville. We've got a lot to get to today. No more basketball, at least no more basketball games to talk about. We're talking a lot of portal now, so I'll give you some basketball portal nuggets towards the end of this episode. So we'll talk a little bit of basketball to close things out. But Vandy's got a huge series at Hawkins Field this weekend. Number 2 Arkansas rolls into town to face number 14 Vanderbilt. Starts tomorrow at 7 o'clock. They'll roll through the weekend, Saturday at 2 o'clock, and then Sunday at 1 o'clock, all of them here in the Music City. So looking forward to previewing that matchup with Kevin Bohannon from hogsports.com, our partner at 247 Sports. Kevin, how you doing?
Hey, doing good, Billy. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with this Arkansas team, and it's been interesting to follow the narrative around Dave Van Horn's program the last 3-4 years, because I don't think it's been all that much different than the the discussion points with Tim Corbin. Whereas you got to get more power, you got to hit more home runs. You're pitching well, you're playing defense well, and you're playing some small ball. But it's interesting to track both these programs. They've faltered in the postseason and early on, whether it's a home regional and things of that nature. Maybe not the exact same, but how has that narrative maybe changed to start this season early? I know you got a lot of SEC play to go, but this Arkansas team is hitting the baseball.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Dave Van Horn pointed out when he met with the media at the end of last year. He was very transparent, and Coach Van Horn's always been transparent as long as I've known him, and I've known him in a couple of roles, especially now with the media, that their record was inflated last year. Their seeding was inflated going into the postseason. If they didn't have Hagen Smith on the mound, they weren't very good. He was very honest about that. So the goal for the offseason was to get more athletic, being able to do multiple things with the offense, being able to hit and run, bunt for a hit, steal some bases, and let the power come naturally. Now, the power has come at a little bit higher rate than what I think they were going to do this year, and the coaching staff honestly believes, because Kuhio Aloy is a year ahead of where they thought he would be. In the fall and the preseason, he was swinging at pitches, getting himself out. He got a couple of chances early on against lefties as the DH, and all of a sudden he started out as one of the hottest hitters in the nation. But then you had Brent Iredale, who's worked himself into a top 100 prospect for the 2025 MLB draft. Put that with Vahiva Aloy, who came in as one of the nation's top shortstops in preseason, Brooks Wallace preseason award watch list, of course, the Golden Spikes. And they just kept stacking those guys. So now you had Charles Davilan, who is putting up video game numbers ever since he got back from Arlington. So in the past month, he's hitting over 500. He's leading the team right now with a .413 batting average, has 43 hits, and he scored 34 runs in the last 14 games. So they're doing it a lot of different ways, and that's the thing that they wanted to see happening. They scored 35 runs against Carolina last weekend, and that was after scoring 12 on Saturday and Sunday against Ole Miss. So they've had 5 straight games scoring double digits.
Man, that's big time stuff offensively for Arkansas, and obviously coming into the weekend, Vanderbilt's pitching staff is one to watch as well. And I can't wait to see that matchup because Vanderbilt, and I know they're coming off a weekend against Texas A&M where, offensively they haven't been great shakes, which has been pretty confusing. But Vanderbilt had almost 50 strikeouts over the weekend. So coming into this weekend, has Arkansas seen a staff quite like Vanderbilt's? I know Vanderbilt's may not be the same elite arms like your Rocker, your Leiter, and guys like that. But they've still been able to get outs and a lot of strikeouts as well. So do you think Arkansas has seen a rotation like this year?
No, they haven't. Ole Miss came in, and those guys, they had some velocity. Hunter Elliott, I knew from the get-go, was going to be a matchup nightmare for Arkansas. He was as a freshman in 2022. He beat them twice that year, once in Fayetteville and then once in Omaha. So that was one pitcher. Now you got J.D. Thompson on Friday night, and it's going to be a tough matchup. And then you got, is it Bowker? Is that how you say his last name?
Bowker, yep.
Yeah, and it's a deep pitching staff, and it's one that Dave Van Horn expects Coach Corbin to have every year. So, yeah, it's not the Rocker, Leiter, Walker Buehler days or anything like that, but playing at Vanderbilt always has a nostalgic feel because Hawkins Field is really different. There's only 3,700 seats. It's very enclosed. That was one of the things Coach Van Horn spoke about yesterday when he met with the media, and there was a lot of questions about, well, how does it feel to play at Vanderbilt? And he was very honest about it. It's like, look, there's not much room on the foul lines. Everything feels right on top of you. So the players have to get used to that as well, on top of playing a really good team that pitches and plays defense real well.
All right, tell us about the rotation. I was just looking it up, and it looks like Zach Root, Landon Bedelshis, and Gabe Gackle will be the rotation there for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that correct? And what can we expect to see from those few guys?
So Gackle was the Friday night guy coming into the year, and he made the starts at the first couple of weekends. Then they decided they wanted to break it up a little bit after Gage Wood got injured. So Gage Wood was the Sunday guy in Arlington. He got hurt. He's still out for a couple of weeks, so he won't pitch this weekend. So Zach Root is a transfer from East Carolina. He was their number 2 guy behind Trey Savage last year. Really good 3-pitch, 4-pitch mixed guy, can throw a slider at any count, has a really good cutter, but the fastball can get up 92 to 94. He'll work in the 91 to 93 range, but he can throw his off speed at any count, and that's the biggest thing. Landon Bedelshis, the velocity isn't quite there. Bedelshis was moved back to the bullpen after the first weekend where they opened with a 4-game set against Washington State. And he had a little bit more velocity out of the bullpen. The problem with Bedelshis lately is he's been missing over the middle of the plate. Against Ole Miss, he gave up 2 2-run home runs. He gave up 2 solo shots last week to South Carolina on Sunday and then kind of settled in. So those two worked from the left side. And then Gackle has really – it's been kind of an enigma, and the coaching staff really hasn't been able to figure it out yet. They played Charlotte early in the season, and Charlotte's going to be a good team out of the American Athletic Conference. And Gackle gave up 9 runs. They gave up 8 in the first inning. Arkansas came back to win that game. But he was throwing over the middle of the plate, and one of Charlotte's assistant coaches met with Coach Van Horn after the game. He's from Northwest Arkansas and actually was a student assistant under Coach Van Horn, and said, look, he throws his same pitch about 70% of the time in the same spot. That's how we knew to jump on it. So Arkansas had not done a really good job of self-scouting to that point, especially when you have catchers that are 20, 21 years old that are calling pitches. They tend to get in the same pattern a lot. That's one thing that I've noticed. So they had to do a better job of self-scouting. So instead of just correcting it a little bit, Gackle went overcorrection. So he's pitching like every pitch is an 0-2 pitch. He's trying to be too fine. So he starts walking more. The command's not there. Velocity's still there. He's still going to be 94 to 96. Power curveball. But that's it. And he doesn't really have a changeup. So they have to get him in the mindset to pitch with more confidence and be a little bit more strategic in situational pitching than what he was last year. He was a closer last year as a freshman. That's what the coaching staff has done over the past 4 years. They put their best freshman in the closer role, and they've done it this year with Carson Wiggins. So him adapting to a starting role is taking a little bit longer than what they thought it would.
Going back a couple of years ago, and this is a series that stands out big time against Arkansas, but in 2023, number 2 Arkansas came to Nashville. They whipped Vanderbilt on Friday, 8-2, and this might even have been a Thursday Saturday.
I think it was a Thursday Saturday. Yep.
I think it was Thursday Saturday. So Arkansas jumped on them, and then Friday night was a wild one. Vanderbilt won 10-8. I think that was the big one where they came back, and that kind of helped turn Vanderbilt's season around a little bit, gave them momentum heading into the postseason. Then they won 7-6. Just a phenomenal series. And I think it was another really good series the year before that in Fayetteville. If I remember, Enrique Bradfield had a big home run in one of those games. To me, Kevin, to me, Arkansas Vandy is an underrated, I don't know if I'd call it rivalry, but every time these two teams get together, when it's Coach Van Horn and Tim Corbin, it's going to be good baseball, fundamental baseball. They're going to be disciplined. You'll see some jawing back and forth, but I don't think, these are programs that you won't see things get out of hand typically. And I know Vanderbilt and Tennessee is probably Vandy's biggest rival, but Vandy and Arkansas, it's great baseball every time these two get together.
I agree, and I wish they played every year. So
yeah,
I coached showcase baseball for 8 seasons and coached some guys that played for the Razorbacks. Caden Wallace, Jackson Wiggins, 2 of the ones that come to mind. Casey Martin was in our program. So we got to play against a lot of Vandy guys. Enrique Bradfield was one that I saw at 16, and I was like, this guy is going to be really good. He was playing for Team Elite at the time. Kumar Rocker, got to coach against him. Just amazing to watch that young man pitch at such a young age. 95 looked effortless at that point. So knowing that Christian Little was another one. I know he transferred to LSU, but when he came out of the St. Louis area, I thought he's the next big dude to come through, but he didn't stick. So I've always loved this matchup. I've always loved this series. I've gotten a lot of stuff from Tim Corbin over the year. He was the one that I talked to at the ABCA about. It's not small ball, it's opportunistic baseball. And that's another way to put it. Instead of saying everything's small ball, it's putting situations at certain times during a game and how you can take advantage of opportunities. So I've always loved this series, and especially I think in the preseason, I do a week-by-week analysis and prediction, and I picked Arkansas to lose this series because it's always tough to win at Vanderbilt.
Well, it's tough in the SEC in general. I mean, you go on the road, you saw last weekend, I think Tennessee went out in Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, but that's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to go on the road in the SEC and win what we're seeing in basketball. But, I mean, have you seen SEC baseball like this? I know you've been covering and watching baseball for a long time in the SEC. Just how truly deep is it? Because you look at it, you could probably argue Missouri's the only team that probably doesn't care a whole lot, probably doesn't invest a whole lot into baseball, but everybody else does, and it's really a fight to the death.
They do, and Auburn, that's who Vanderbilt opened up with. They lost that series.
Yeah,
just somebody like Auburn and what they've done with the program, and adding Oklahoma and Texas. Skip Johnson does a great job over there, and then Schlossnagle got hired at Texas, which just opens up a rivalry because he's always been at one of the most respected coaches in the nation. So when you add that to it, and when you look at the standings coming into the week, you got Arkansas's number 2, Tennessee's 1, Georgia's 3. What Georgia did to Florida last weekend was really unexpected. They went to Gainesville, not only swept them, but run ruled them twice. So that just shows you what can happen every weekend. And I think the portal and NIL era has helped with the balance in the league. It gives everybody a little bit of an equal footing, because if you've got a little bit of money and programs that are able to attract kids that will come to their school to play baseball to get ready for the pros. That's what Tony Vitello built at Tennessee. He took Coach Van Horn's game plan, added his own spice to it, and now they're one of the top programs in the nation. Won the national title last year. And Ole Miss coming out of the depths, in 2022, Mississippi State the year before that, LSU and the run they had with Paul Skeens. Arkansas was in on Paul Skeens. I think they were number 2. They had him on campus. Matt Hobbs met with him at Team USA that year. And it's just, you can always say kind of what if this would have happened. So more players from like Vahiva Lloyd coming from Sacramento State coming to the SEC. Then you've got his brother that comes in from BYU. All the best players in the nation are now flocking to the SEC and playing for one of these 16 teams, and it just makes it a deeper conference.
Can't wait. You got more good SEC baseball this weekend. It's number 2 Arkansas, number 14 Vandy at the Hawk. Kevin, looking forward to it. Good luck with your coverage this weekend, and hopefully we get another classic Vandy Arkansas series.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Billy.
All right. Appreciate it, Kevin. That is Kevin Bohannan. You can find him on Twitter. Big baseball guy in general. He mentioned how he's coached in some showcases. Coached against Enrique Bradfield and a lot of Arkansas players as well. But he is a baseball writer there for 24/7 Sports, Arkansas Online, Hog Sports. He does it all for Arkansas baseball. I think you can also hear him on the radio there in Arkansas. So love talking with anyone from another SEC program to preview this weekend. All right, we got some basketball portal nuggets as well. I know Jalen Carey has entered the portal. We know J.Q. Roberts has entered the portal, and it's teetering on Jason Edwards. I think that's been out there. It's in the air. It's in the portal air. Here's what I'll say on Jalen Carey. Vanderbilt's style of play under Mark Byington is, number one, fast-paced. It's up-tempo. And ideally, you have a 4-man. And I know Carey played a lot of 5, and he may be a center moving forward. But ideally, Carey carries a 4, where he's 6'8", whereas you can play a 6'11", 7-footer alongside him and be really good down low. To me, felt like the style of play, and Carey's an athlete. Don't get me wrong. Carey is extremely athletic. He ran the floor well. Didn't shoot the ball great. I know he hit some threes. But in my mind, Coach Byington and staff want a 4-man that number one, runs the floor, that can consistently hit threes. Not at an elite level, but you saw guys like a Trevin Brazil at Arkansas that can hit a big 3 in a big moment. And you can rely on him to do that. You can stretch the floor. I know he's 6'11", but Brazil playing the 4 for them a lot. That's kind of the athlete, and I know that's a rare athlete. But another example is Mo Diabate, and he's not a great shooter. He'll knock down a 3 every now and then for Alabama, but he runs the floor. He finishes at the rim, and he's a little bit lighter in general, and I don't think Vanderbilt wants. I don't think they need a guy as physical as Edwards at the 4. Now that's I think it would have been ideal, and it would have been fine for them to keep him. But again, in this money NIL driven world, you got to imagine he got an offer, talked with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had some things to say, and boom, Carey's in the portal. But again, it's not the end of the world. I don't think it's a massive loss. It's a loss. Carey's talented. He's a good player, and I think he's got great potential to be a really good player. But it's not a huge loss. Vanderbilt can recover, and they will. They will recover from this. J.Q. Roberts, we mentioned that last episode on Tuesday. Good for him. He'll go find a place to play more. Hopefully to win and to improve his game as well. So we mentioned that. Edwards, I don't feel great about him staying. I'll just say that. And again, I think that's been discussed. And there's a lot more info on the board. I know Robbie and Joey and Brandon conspired for a board post and put some information out there. So I'll just leave it at that. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Jason Edwards enters. Other than that, and I am actually working on a roster tracker for the basketball team right now. Other than that, I really would be surprised if anybody else left. The only other guy I would say is MJ Collins. Again, don't think he leaves, but you've always got the possibility. You've always got that possibility there. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this roster comes together. I'm going to start throwing out names that Vanderbilt is in on. I know Brandon Bigsby's done a really good job, Robbie and Joey on the board. So go subscribe to the board for all of the basketball nuggets. And I wanted to try to get Joey on today. He's actually down at football practice. So is Robbie. So stay tuned for their football updates after today's practice. And stay tuned for this baseball series this weekend. Number 2 Arkansas, number 14 Vandy. It's tomorrow at 7:00, game 1 on the SEC Network. So it'll be on SEC Network tomorrow night, Saturday at 2:00 on SEC Network Plus, and then Sunday at 1:00 on Plus as well. So for Vanderbilt, and it's interesting, before the season, Kevin picked Vanderbilt to win this series. He said because it's hard to win. It's hard to win at Hawkins Field, especially this season. Vanderbilt's 16-0 at Hawkins Field, the best home start to a season since 2007. And that's impressive. And again, it's hard to win on the road in the SEC, which is why it'll be a challenge for Arkansas. They've got a great pitching staff. They hit the baseball. And an interesting tidbit here is Cam Kojal. Forgot to mention that. I should have asked Kevin about that. But Cam Kojal coming back to Hawkins Field, he's been playing well for Arkansas. 372 average. He's got 2 home runs, 16 RBIs. He's playing second base for the Hogs and doing a great job at it. So good for him. He's closer to home, closer to Omaha. So that'll be interesting to track him and keep an eye on his motivation this weekend. And again, I don't know what happened there, but he's in the SEC. He's a good player. So it'll be interesting to see Cam Kojal. But outside of Kojal, you heard Kevin talk about number 24, Charles Davalon. He's hitting .413, 7 homers, and 25 RBIs. That's a guy to watch for Arkansas. The Aloy brothers, Kohio Aloy hitting over 400, and Wahiwa Aloy hitting 383. Wahiwa's got 10 home runs on the season. That's a guy to watch. Logan Maxwell hitting 380. I mentioned Kojal, Brent Iredale, 351. They hit the baseball. They've got 6 guys hitting above 300. And then you look at their pitching staff. Landon Bedelshi's, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's 3-0 on the season, 3.76 ERA. Ben Bybee, 3.8 ERA. He's 2-0. Zach Root, the East Carolina transfer, just a 4.02 ERA. So right around 4 is kind of the ERA number there. For Arkansas. So you've also got Gabe Gackle as well, and they've got tons of depth in the bullpen with guys that Vanderbilt players are familiar with, and Will McIntyre, Gage Wood, and a good bullpen. So again, it'll be interesting this weekend. Again, Vanderbilt doesn't need it. You might look back at the season and say they needed this series, but it's not a. He said must win a few times in basketball. It's not a must win series for Vanderbilt baseball. Riley Nelson is a guy that Arkansas, I've heard, looked at this year and wanted. And this happens all the time. Bedelshi's Vandy looked at him and wanted him, but ended up getting Bowker. And then, of course, the Michigan State deal with Jerwood, it didn't come to fruition. But Nelson's a guy this weekend that needs to play well. Humphrey, Johnston, Austin, Rustin Rigdon, you wonder how much time he gets. But you wonder about the rotation as well. Cody Bowker, you're looking at going on Sunday. J.D. Thompson will go tomorrow. So really interesting to see what happens this weekend for Vanderbilt. Again, it gets underway tomorrow, 7:00 on the SEC Network. It's Vanderbilt and Arkansas. All right, big thanks to Kevin Bohannan for previewing that series. Again, we're now part of the Believe Network with over 500 shows. Believe reaches an audience across all major podcast platforms, including YouTube, social media, regional sports TV networks, streaming video services, and Fast TV. It's the ultimate destination for hosts, fans, and brands alike, providing something for everyone. Big thanks to our guest, Kevin Bohannan. He was brought to you by John Levin, good friend of the show. Womble Bond Dickinson, thanks the student athletes at Vanderbilt for their dedication, effort, and hard work. Give the podcast a review and a 5-star rating. That helps us get noticed. If you're listening and haven't subscribed to Vandy247.com yet, please do. Only $1 for the first month. You can get the annual subscription or the monthly. The annual, $6.27 a month for a year. You get 30% off the first year. The monthly, $1 for your first month, and then it goes up to $9.95 a month. Again, $1 for your first month. There's really no better way to be in the know for Vanderbilt athletics than Vandy247.com. All right, that'll do it for another episode of Vandy 24/7 Live. For Kevin Bohannan, I'm Billy Derrick. big series this weekend at the Hawk. Looking forward to seeing you guys out there. We'll have full coverage. Again, that is Vandy 24/7 Live.